And the Rabbi explained this, that the job of Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader of every generation of Jews, and there must be such a leader, because without it the Jews cannot reveal their true purpose. Just one second. Hello. אחרי, או תפתחי את הדלת שלי, בחדר שלי, אחרי הדלת יש שקית לבן. יפה, יש הרבה. So we explained that there must be such a Moshe Rabbeinu in order to activate the latent potential of every Jew. And what is the potential of every Jew? Every Jew feels Hashem. Every Jew believes in Hashem. Every Jew is certain that Hashem exists, even though it's above understanding. And this feeling that a Jew has for Hashem eventually can be translated into action, love, positive emotions, even fear, which is a positive. He's afraid of doing something wrong, so he wants to get things right. He wants to learn what the Torah says about everything. He wants to really be beneficial, do the best thing he can possibly do. That's why he goes according to what the Torah says. He wants to go according to the Torah says. So that activates, activates the Jew. In other words, what is the job of Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is called a Raya Mahemna. He's called a faithful shepherd, or in another way, it's called the shepherd of faith. He brings faith to grazing. He feeds the faith. He makes Jews' faith more powerful, more active, stronger, more personal. He puts it inside of the people more personally. So the Jews are not like the thief who prays to God before he goes to steal. Now, the thief believes in God, and he prays to God, but what does he pray to God for? So that he'll steal. In other words, he wants to, that God should okay what he does. And what he feels, exactly the opposite. He wants that he should okay what God feels. That he should feel what Hashem feels. That's called, in the language of the last line when we learned, it's called self-transformation. Enjoying doing what Hashem says is good, and really being disgusted by what God said is bad. Okay, says Moshe does, that's the job of Moshe. But then later on in the Mimer it says that Moshe does this by means of the Jews being crushed. Kativ l'ma'or. The Jews get crushed. How do the Jews get crushed? By the gullus, by the exile. That's really what brings out the true potential of the Jews, is the exile. Being in exile and being difficulties of exile and having to deal with the challenges of life day to day. That's what brings out the essential oil of the Jew, this pure oil of the Jew. And when that happens, that adds also to Moshe. That also, so it says, that the Jewish people will take to you this oil because it adds to Moshe also. Moshe also gets a higher level, which explains. This is right, 1 second. What is it that brings out this potential of the Jews? It says Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu brings out the potential. He said, yeah, I thought you said something about being squeezed and crushed in gullus. He said, yeah, that's right. Being crushed in gullus. in the exile crushes the Jews, and that's what brings out the essential oil. But you just finished saying that Moshe was, yes, Moshe is the one who does it. But one second, you just said that it was the Gullus that does it. Yes, of course, it's the Gullus. So what's going on here? Is it the exile that brings out the true potential of the Jews, because they have to squeeze themselves? Or is it Moshe that just by his example and his teaching, he brings the essence of the Jews? What's going on here? So the Rebbe starts...
Can it not be good?
Huh?
Can it not be good?
Well, maybe. We'll see. B'hinei, behold, bior, the explanation, the pasuk. This printing is not good. The next printing will have to do better. B'hinei, behold, the bior, the explanation, the pasuk, and the pasuk. It's pasuk, see? Yeah. Pasuk, VeAtah Tetzaveh, Bo comes, Behemshech, and a continuation, Bo, I'm sorry, B'maimer, and the Maimer, Behemshech, and a continuation, Mavur, to what's explained, the Techilat Maimer, the beginning of the Maimer. This is, we're talking about the Rebbe keeps referring to the Maimer, in other words, the Maimer, the Hasidic discourse of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1927, Kaf Reish Pei Zayin. And in that Maimer it says, it talks about Purim. It's a Purim Maimer, Purim Katan Maimer. And it says, the Pirush, that what it means, the Kibel HaYehudim, that accepted the Jews. I'll just translate the words and I'll explain it afterwards. The Kibel HaYehudim accepted the Jews accepted et asher, that which heichelu, they began la'asot, to do. End quote. It says in the end of the Megillah, the story of Purim, that the Jews accepted what they began to do. They accepted what they began to do. What did they accept and what did they begin? What is this talking about? It doesn't explain in the Megillah. And the Megillah doesn't explain. There's just a word, a sentence there that doesn't seem to mean anything. It says the Jews accepted what they began.
Which part of the Megillah is it?
Near the end. The Jews accepted what they began.
Isn't that like referring to like accepting the Torah again?
With that, well, we'll have to explain it, but in the sentence it doesn't make any sense. In the Megillah itself, just as this thing stuck, the Jews began, the Jews accepted what they began.
You know what you quote it before and after?
Huh?
You know what the line is before and after?
Right and before and after. It tells about what about how a lot of the non-Jews became Jews, and everybody was afraid of Mordechai, and that things were really good, and the king made a big how do you say, a feast, whatever it is, a big party or something like that for everybody. He gave everybody gifts, and he raised up Esther to be very, very high, and Mordechai also became. The Jews had Or v'Simcha v'Sasam v'Yakor. The Jews had La Yehudim, to the Jews was happiness. At the end of the Megillah, one of the sentences it says over there, there were so many good things that are going on in the end of the Megillah that there's all of a sudden it throws in this pasuk, and the Jews accepted what they began to do. And it just keeps going on. Right? The Kibel HaYehudim, that's a share. So it's calling it look and see. And all of they gave great good honor to the Jews. It says, hey, what is this sentence talking about? That the Jews accepted what they began to do. So it explains in Midrashim, the parish that means who is Shekim.
La'asot, the first.
La'asot is the first word line. Who is, and that's the end of the quote. Who is Shekiblu, they accepted. Ma, what? Sheichelu, they began. The Jews accepted what they began.
Shehechilu.
Sheichelu, what? Ma. Again, who is Shekiblu, they accepted. Ma, what? She, that. Heichelu, they began.
I don't know where
Third line.
What? Who is Yeah, who is?
בזמן
Who
דמתה.
is Shekiblu that they accepted? Ma, what? Shehechelu, they began Be'azaman in the time of Matan Torah. What happened at Matan Torah? All the Jews, that was the birth of the Jewish people. When were the Jewish people really became a nation? When did they really become a nation? At Matan Torah. In Matan Torah they became a nation. It was being formed and formed and formed. Or maybe you could say when they left Egypt. Could be. When they left Egypt, they became a nation. Because Egypt is like a birth. When the Jews got the Torah, Hayasa was Hahalchalta, the beginning. Hechelu Lasot, that was the beginning. When they got the Torah, that was the beginning. That was the beginning of the Jewish people. Hechelu Lasot, B'yamei Achashverosh, but in the days of Achashverosh, B'zaman, in the time, B'zeres Haman, in the time of the decree of Haman, Hayasa Kabbalah, that was the time the Jews accepted. How long after Matan Torah was the miracle of Purim? About 1,000 years after.
So what?
And the Jews were doing the Torah for 1,000 years. They had the Torah. They had even the first temple. And the first temple had been destroyed. And all this time they were doing all the mitzvahs, everything. They were making sacrifices. All the Jews were living in Israel. It was the ideal Zionistic religious ideal. There was a Medina, the whole country was according to halacha, everybody was doing the laws. And they had a holy temple. All the Jews were living in Israel. There was no Jews living outside of Israel anywhere. And everything was fine. But the Jews did not accept the Torah. They had the Torah. They were all observing the Torah. Everybody kept Shabbos. Everybody learned Torah. Everybody did. But they had not yet accepted the Torah. What does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. Maybe they didn't accept it. They were doing it against their will. They were all doing the Torah, but there was no people that said, hey, let's stop doing this Torah.
Is that the surrounding?
We'll see.
So, Ha'ita Kabbalah.
What?
The last two words of the line.
Ha'ita was HaKabbalah, the acceptance.
Was the acceptance.
Only the time when Haman came along did the Jews actually accept the Torah. Why? Because you're going to see what the Torah is. The Torah is not laws. Of course, that's the external of it. The external thing is again, the Torah is something very, very essential to a Jew. We're going to see. Al derech like Maimor is what the rabbis say. Al pasuk on the pasuk.
V'kabel ha'Yehudim.
What?
The first
Not
two
in the end
lines.
quote.
Oh, Hayata Kabbalah. That's what it means. V'kibel Yehudim, that the Jews accepted.
Oh, V'kibel Yehudim. Okay.
Al derech like Maimor is what the rabbis say. Al pasuk on the sentence. Okay?
I'm sorry, Rabbi. So Ha'ita HaKabbalah, the Jews, it was accepted. V'kibel ha'Yehudim, and accepted.
Again, listen. At the time of Matan Torah, that was the beginning. And at the days of Achashverosh was the acceptance.
Okay.
And that's what it says, quote, Kibel Yehudim. That's what it means, the Jews accepted. Good?
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, you have a dove?
Yeah.
Al derech like Maimor is what the rabbis say. Al pasuk on the pasuk. A similar pasuk. Similar pasuk. Also very near the end. It says Al pasuk Kimu the Kibel Kiblu Yehudim. End quote. The pasuk, the rabbis say same thing, exactly the same. Kimu fulfilled. The Kiblu and accepted HaYehudim. It says, it's a pasuk. The Jews fulfilled and they accepted. The Jews fulfilled and they accepted. What does it mean? Here it uses the word Kiblu a little bit, exactly the opposite word. Kimu, they fulfilled, they did. Ma Kiblu, what they accepted, kavar.
Kivar.
Huh?
Kivar.
Already.
Uh,
What did they accept? Okay, previously we had that the Jews finally accepted the Torah. They never really accepted it. There's another place where we use the word accepting as when they got the Torah back then. Listen, it says, Kimu v'kiblu, fulfilled and accepted. The Jews fulfilled and they accepted. What does it mean they fulfilled and they accepted? They finally fulfilled what they accepted at Mount Sinai. This, Shehikdimu, it's a kuf, Shehikdimu, that the Jews said first, Shehikdimu, that they made first, they preceded. Na'aseh, we will do. Nishma, too, we will understand.
So that made first what we will do.
The fact that they preceded na'aseh, the word na'aseh, we will do. Nishma, too, we will understand.
Isn't it what we heard?
We will understand. But Matan Torah and Matan Torah,
we will do what we understand.
We will do.
We will not.
Just translate the words and I'll explain. Just first of all, just translate the words and I'll explain afterwards. Okay? Just translate. Again, the zeh, the this, she preceded, she ikdimu, they preceded. Na'aseh, we will do. Li nishma, too, we will understand. B'matan Torah, at Matan Torah. VeAtah was Rak only HaKabbalah, when they accepted, they accepted the Torah, when they got the Torah. Ubiyamei, and in the days Achashverosh, and the days of Achashverosh, Kimu, they fulfilled Ma Shekiblu, what they accepted.
How do I pronounce the days of...
Ubiyamei, and in the days of...
No, the next word.
Achashverosh.
Achashverosh.
Verosh.
And is that someone's name, is it?
Achashverosh is the king. You have to, now is the time, everybody, to take out a book, listen, take out a book in English of the Holy Bible.
We need to tell me what the name is in English.
And read, please, and read the story of Purim.
I know. That in English, I know it in English, not in Hebrew, so what's the translation of that in
Achashverosh,
English?
that's his name. Like Joe Friedberg.
I've heard it was a different name.
Achashverosh, that's his name. What difference does it make? That's why I say you have...
Is that right? Yeah, that's what I heard.
You have to get a book of this and you have to read it. It's called Xerxes. His name was Achashverosh, that was his name. Maybe they used to call him Joe or Lefty or something. Yeah, the nicknames they called him. Right?
Everyone has their own name of calling.
Yeah, Popeye.
It's a Greek
The
name.
fact of the matter is, his name was Achashverosh. That was his name. Huh? It says in the Torah. That's what it says in the Torah. That was written, 2,500 years ago? His name was Achashverosh. Maybe they made up a new name in the history books. It says his name was Achashverosh. What happened? The Jews, before they got the Torah, what did they do? The Jews, Hashem said to the Jewish people, you're going to get the Torah. They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. You ever heard that before? Have you ever heard that before?
We will do with what we will hear.
Right, we had that just recently in Parshas Yisro. The Jews, before they got the Torah, they all said, Na'aseh v'nishma. What does it mean, Na'aseh v'nishma?
They accepted it before they heard it.
Na'aseh means we'll do it, and then we'll understand it. It says that God went around to all the different nations, or the heads of all the different nations, and He said to them, listen, how would you fellows like the Torah? He went around to the Arabs, and He went around to the Chaldeans, and He went around to the Chaldeans, and He went around to the Phoenicians. Who knows what He went to? He went to all these different, right, the Africanians, and the Americans, and the rednecks, and the Hanchos, and He went around to all these different people, and He said, would you like the Torah? And they all said, one second. They asked their wise men, and the wise men said, don't take, how do you say, white elephants. Don't take a cat in a bag. Ask God what it says in the Torah first. And they said, excuse me, we're really considering this, but can you tell us a little bit about what it says there? I mean, what are we supposed to get? we know you're God, and we know you create the world, and we know you create us, and you're very good, but, just tell us what exactly we're getting ourselves into. And God said, I'll get back to you. Then he went to another nation, right? And he said to the other nation, you want the Torah? And they said, listen, let's understand a little bit first. Let's see a little bit what... He went around to the Jews. Jews are the smartest nation in the world. They're always very clever about things. He said, you want the Torah? They said, we'll do it. We'll take it, and we'll understand it afterwards.
I thought Torah made us.
Huh? It says, Am Chacham Anavam. They said they were smart people. You can see by all the excuses they made up, not to leave Egypt and not to do this. They were all always using their mind, an intellectual thing, for not necessarily for good things, but for, to be professors or something like that. Professors in how do you say, not leaving Egypt. Ology. Philosophers, right. What's democracy into what?
Lenishma is to hear. Where does understand come from?
Understand. Shema Yisrael. Hashem Elokeinu. What does it mean? Shema Yisrael means understand.
Hear, O Israel.
What does it mean? Hear, O Israel? What are we supposed to hear? Just to listen, to hear.
Like that the Lord is one, the God is one.
Psalm and Shanti.
To understand that God is one.
What are you supposed to hear? Just hear. Shema means to understand. To think deeply. There's no mitzvah just to hear.
But in the Torah it says to hear.
The word Shema means to understand also. The word Shema means to understand.
Both.
Because I thought that they accepted it before they heard it. And then once they heard it,
That was
they
the whole
understood
mitzvah.
Yeah, that's what he's saying here.
Na'aseh, the word.
He's just straight up saying understand.
How can Na'aseh means we will do it.
We'll do it.
One second. Let's get
How
logical.
do you do it?
How can you do something before you hear it? Right? God says, okay, you wanted the Torah. He said, yes, we'll do it, and then we'll hear it. God said, what a bunch of nuts. How can you guys do something before you hear it? We'll just do it. Well, what are you going to do? We're just doing, that's all. Here, let's do this, and we'll do this, and let's do this. You have to hear something about what to do. You have to. So hearing does not mean hearing with your ears. It means understanding. Na'aseh, we will do the Torah, and then we'll understand it. And really the Jews had a very deep thing, because they knew that only by means of doing it could they really understand it. Even if God explained it in the first, it would not be the same understanding as if you did it first, because through action you become a different person. And by understanding, you don't become a different person, you just increase your mind, you become a bigger person, if you want to call it. You support your own ego, because ego is a very strong and essential thing. So when you learn all these ideas, so the ideas, you can use them all to support your own ego. Look at these great, psychiatrists and philosophers. They change their personality even one iota, nothing. See, some of these guys were just like animals. Especially the French philosophers. They even brought they were geniuses, but they brought all of their genius to support their own, low egotism. And they were geniuses about it. They just, there's no meaning in the world, there's no purpose, there's nothing, just do whatever you want to. And they had books, huge books, finally they ended up, I had to read this whole book to know how to be an animal. I could be an animal without reading the book. Right? Just maybe might have had questions and felt a little bit of conscience, so I remember what this guy said. Na'aseh and Nishma means that if you do, then you can understand better. But the Jewish people said, first of all, we'll do it, and then we'll understand it. Wonderful, right? Wonderful attitude, the Jewish people said. God, if you're telling us, it must be good. Whatever you say, we're going to do. And after that, we'll ask questions. We'll understand. Good? That was really wonderful. Says the Rabbi, yes, it was really wonderful, but they didn't really get the point. They did it. They said, we'll do what we will understand, we'll be Mesiras and they understood what was demanded of them, but they never really managed to completely do it until the days of Haman. Because the Torah demands something much more total than doing and understanding.
It shows a sense of humility in the Jews.
Yes, it shows humility, and it shows the readiness of the Jews to do what God wants, and it shows that there was some inside point of the Jews that they wanted to completely surrender themselves to God. But the fact is, they didn't do it until
in a way also it knows about going back to it.
Why going back?
Because they accepted it again.
Oh, you mean in the time of Purim?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right, sure.
It's like we made it
Yes. Like they remade the vows. Second honeymoon. So here we have the Jewish people, special people. They were chosen by God. God took them out of Egypt, gave them all these miracles, gave them the Torah, took them into the land of Israel, protected them from their enemies, gave them the base of Mikdash, forgave them for all the mistakes they had, was about to build a second base of Mikdash, and still the Jews did not really get the point. After all of these years of experience and they say working together with God and seeing these amazing miracles and also being tremendously self-sacrificing, the Jews all these years, still the Jews never really got the point until the days of Achashverosh. What happened in the days of Achashverosh? What was so special?
What do you mean they didn't understand?
They didn't really get the point.
What does that mean they didn't get the point?
We'll see. We'll see. What is the point? In other words, what is it that God really demands from the Jews that they hadn't done before? They did all these amazing things before they went through the desert. They fought these battles. They had temples. They all served. All the Jews went up to the temple 3 times a year.
So all through this time they didn't know what.
They didn't. They were missing something. They were missing the main point, the big point.
So we don't know what that is yet.
We don't know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it must be otherwise for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. And we're going to see, the Rabbi is going to explain to us that even back then, they held on to this point, but they got the point, but they didn't really hold on to it for long. Our generation is the one that's going to get it.
He had during so it was the second mission where it was a little more special than the first one.
Was more?
And he had that understanding.
We'll see. Well, you'll see what it means. Essentially, they didn't have it in the second temple. That's why it was destroyed. But we're going to get it. Our generation is the one that's going to get it. What is this what we're talking about? What is this point that we're supposed to get? Right? After God took the Jews out of Egypt, He showed them all the miracles, gave them the Torah. The Jews suffered in the desert. They had all these lessons that were taught to them by people attacking them. And the Jews were, if you ever read the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges, 2 books of Judges, very amazing. Same story repeats itself over and over again in a big way. The Jews, they sin. They go and they worship idols. Then all of a sudden the Goyim from around attack. And the Jews are really in trouble. They say, what are we going to do? We have to have a leader. They pick somebody who's a leader. Right? That's one of the Shoftim, the judges. And the judge takes them and unifies them all. And they fight the battles and they win. Samson wins, and Deborah wins, and Gilad wins, and all these other people win.
5 years later.
And they fight, and all of a sudden, and Samson lived a long time, and this guy lived a long time, and Gilad lived a long time, and Shamgar lived a long time, and Deborah, and all of a sudden he died. And then the Jewish people went back to worshiping idols again. And then the Goyim attacked them. And then the Jews cried out. And then they found, Yiftach. And then Yiftach got everybody together and he won the battles. And Israel was at peace. And then he died. And the Jewish people went to the idols. The story just goes over and over again.
It's amazing that God forgave us every time.
Every time. Even more, the Rebbe brings down in the Tanya that God forgives us at least 3 times a day. When we say Salach Lanu, forgive us, so he can't say a bracha levatala. So it must be that God really forgives us. So why do we have to say it again? Because as soon as we finish, we go back and do it.
There you go.
And he keeps forgiving us. Let's go.
Yiftach was a shofet?
Yiftach was a shofet. There's 15 shoftim.
Maybe they just fought every time they do something bad.
The shoftim lasted 440 years. The shoftim.
40 years.
440 years. 440 years. That was before between the time when the Jews entered Israel until the first base of Mikdash was 440 years.
So we didn't have shoftim in the second temple?
In the second, no. The second temple, there were leaders. There was a very there's a book called Our People. And the second temple was very confusing times. That was a very.
So Mordechai was one of the judges.
Mordechai was not one of the judges. No. Mordechai was one of the Anshe Knesset Gedolim. He was the men of the Great Assembly. That was between the first and the second temple. That was in this time. With Chagai, Malchai, and Zechariah.
So we didn't have judges in the second temple?
They weren't called Shoftim. They weren't called that. They were judges.
72 judges.
The judges in the time we're talking about of the Shoftim, they were like kings. They were sort of like kings, but they weren't official kings. It was a different judge, not judges in courts. They were judges that they told the people what to do. They made the judgments.
But we had a king still.
The first king was King Saul. There was no king.
That's it.
There was no king. The first king was King Shaul. King Shaul was about 440 years after the Jews entered Israel. Shaul. There's different opinions how long Shaul lasted. Let's say King Saul lasted for 2 years. Lasted a very short amount of time. And then King David was picked, and then King David, he was the one who made the temple. He planned the temple, and then King Solomon built the temple. And that was it. By the time of the Shoftim officially ended, the judges ended with King Saul.
And how long did King Solomon rule at the first temple?
King Solomon was what, I don't know, 50 years, 70 years, I think he died when he was 7 years old. The first temple was 410 years.
So 60 years of it we had king, and that's it.
No, then there was all the kings. The whole first
After
temple
that.
was kings, sure. The whole first temple was the kings. That's the book of Malachim. Look at the book of Malachim.
Okay.
Malachim Aleph, Malachim Beis. You have to look, get it in English. You can read it in our people also. There's the book, there's Yehoshua, and then after there's Yehoshua, there's the Shoftim. The Shoftim
After the Shoftim
afterwards the Shoftim was the kings, right? And then after the kings, the last king was when the first place of Midas was destroyed. The country was divided into two. Immediately after King Solomon, there was one set of kings in Israel, which is the northern sort of part of Israel, and there was kings in the southern part. That was David and the others. And the first part ended, I don't know, 150 years before, when the king of Syria, Shalmaneser or somebody.
But from the inception of the first temple to King Saul, we had Shoftims.
No, kings. What from the inception of the Jews coming into Israel?
Correct.
Right, but this is not a history class. From when the Jews came into Israel until King Saul was Shoftim.
Got it.
And from King Saul till the destruction of the first temple, that was Malachim, kings. And then there was 70 years they were in exile in Babylon. And then there was 420 years that the second temple stood. And then there was all sorts of different leaders in the...
No, I read the history, but this I didn't get the timeline correct, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Thank you.
Okay, so now here we are. We built up to a point. Let's not forget this point where the Rebbe is building up to. The Rebbe explained that the purpose of the Jewish people is to be one with Hashem, and that Moshe Rabbeinu does this, and that the Galus does this, the exile does this. In order to explain which is how they work together, or is it separately? Maybe sometimes this one, maybe sometimes this one. We'll explain. It says that the Jewish people went out of Egypt. They accepted the Torah, but they did not get the point of the Torah until the miracle of Purim. What happened at the time of the Torah? The Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma. They said, we are surrendering ourselves to you, God. But they didn't really do it in a full way until 1,000 years later, a little bit less, in the days of Mordechai and Esther. Why? What happened in the days of Mordechai and Esther? What was so special? What was such a big accomplishment? Let's see. Okay, we're after, good? After the parentheses?
Yes.
Umadayak, and he implies in the mimer, Madayak mimer, he's implying something very exact. What? The mimer, the previous Rebbe's mimer, in 1927. Madayak mimer, he is exact in the mimer. In this mimer, what does he say? He says, L'chaora, at first glance, who it is, what is? That the Jews only really accepted the Torah, or they only really fulfilled the Torah 1,000 years after they got it. It says, Davar Pella doesn't make any sense. Who, Davar Pella, this is an amazing, astounding thing.
Davar?
Davar, a thing, Pella, amazing. That the Jews only really got the point in the days of Achashverosh, and from the giving of the Torah, they didn't get the point. That doesn't make any sense. The Matan Torah, then in Matan Torah, Hayu were Yisrael, the Jews, Betachlit, in the ultimate, Ha'ilui Highness, V'haya, and there was. As then, Etzlam, by them. Gilui Elokus, revealed godliness. B'darga,
By then, revelation
of godliness. B'darga, and a level. Hachi, the most. Violate high. In Matan Torah, the Jewish people were, there's never been anything like that. It was like all the Jews were in the Holy of Holies. This is the same revelation that was on Mount Sinai. That was the same revelation that was in the Holy of Holies. And nobody could go into the Holy of Holies. Only the high priest, and he could only go in for a few minutes on Yom Kippur. If you would go in at any other time of the year, or anybody else went in, the most genius holy person in Israel, if they went in, even on Yom Kippur, they would die. And if the Kohen Gadol went in at the wrong time, and even if he went in on the right time, but he had the wrong thoughts, he would also die. That's what every Jew experienced at Mount Sinai. That's why, what was in the Holy of Holies? What was in the Holy of Holies?
The Ark.
But yeah, the tablets.
The Ark and the tablets, the same tablets they received at Mount Sinai. So in the Holy of Holies was the experience of the giving of the Torah every single second. And all the Jews were there. All the Jews experienced it. You want to tell me that in the days of they only really got the point in the days of Haman? Does that make any sense?
Okay. What do you have for Hachinali?
The Most High. The nose of that in addition to this, Shekam that also code and before Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. How you were Giluim, revelations. Na'alim, high. VeAtah, very much.
Very good.
Right, the most. I want to say VeAtah, the most. Before Matan Torah also they had these amazing revelations. The 10 plagues, splitting of Yam Suf, when God split Yam Suf, he saw Agila, the revelation, Shahaya, that was, Yetziat, when they went out, Mitzrayim of Egypt,
Was VeAtah
when they went out, Mitzrayim of Egypt. See, there's letters missing here. See, the printing is there.
One line down there.
Yeah, one line. Mitzrayim, Egypt, Ubefrat, and especially Bekriyat, and the splitting, Yam Suf, of Yam Suf. Hine, behold, Hagilui, the revelation.
What's Yam Suf?
Yam Suf, huh?
Suf in
Yam Suf. They translate it as the Red Sea.
Yeah.
But they say the soup really means reeds. Like, you know, so they say Yam Suf, sea of reeds.
and Red Sea is the same, right?
Yeah.
What?
It's the same thing, Red Sea, Red Sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that...
Hine, behold.
this one.
I don't know, maybe they called it the Red Sea. I don't know. But the simple meaning in the Torah is Yam Suf is the sea of reeds. Hine, behold. Gilui, the revelation. Shoaya, that was Bishad at the time, Matan Torah. At the Matan Torah, Haya was, the letter missing here is a Gimel. Gilui, revelation. Na'aleh, high. Od, Yoter, even more. The revelation was even higher. Will be a May, Achashverosh in the days of
What
Achash.
is odd?
Od, even.
Even?
Right.
That's right.
Yoter, more. The word, okay, even more. Will be a May in the days of Achash. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Achashverosh, in the days of Achashverosh. How you were. Yisrael, the Jews. Betachlit, and the ultimate. How you read descent. The time of Achashverosh, the Jews were at the lowest period in history. The nosaf, that in addition, in the nosaf, that in addition, lihahelim, to the concealment, vehahester, and the, what is that? Another word, concealment.
Covered.
Covering. Shebizman, Shebakol, that in all galus, in every exile, in addition to the fact that they were in exile. And every exile is terrible. To call Galus, that every exile who is the dugma like Galut, the exile, Mitzrayim from Egypt, in Egypt.
Wasn't the Yamis?
Huh? The dugmas like. It's like the exile in Egypt.
Similar to.
Right, similar to. Ukamo, and like Shebegalos, the exile, Mitzrayim of Egypt. Kasiv, it is written, quote, Velo Sham'u, they did not hear. El Moshe, they did not hear Moshe. Mikotzer Ruach, from short spirit.
Wait, what? They did not hear to
They could not listen Moshe. They couldn't
didn't listen to him?
listen to Moshe, right? They couldn't listen to Moshe. Mikotzer Ruach, from short spirit.
Lack of emunah.
No, we'll see. Simple meaning short spirit means that they had no time. They had no time. Kotzer Ruach, they couldn't concentrate on anything. They were always being made to work, slaves. Me'avodah kasha, and from hard work.
Kasha is hard.
Hard work, right. Moshe Rabbeinu said, okay everybody, here we go, let's get out. They said, Moshe, do us a favor, help us with the straw a little bit. Moshe said, no, the time has come, I am the appointed man, and I'm taking all of this. Moshe, do me a favor, talk over there, you're bothering us, we have to gather the straw, can you help us? Maybe invent something that will help us gather straw. And Moshe said, we are going out with an outstretched hand, we're going to the promised land, we will see it. We said, we get this guy out of here, we have to work. When they catch us not working, we're gonna get beaten up, Moshe. We can't, Kotzer, they couldn't listen to him. And the work was so hard, they didn't believe they were going to get out. What are we talking get out? Just give us a little handful, a handful of straw or something, that we can make some more bricks. They weren't thinking about getting out. Al Derek, similarly, who it is, the call goes in every exile. It's like the story I told you last night about yesterday about the Kloisenberg Rebbe, that he said, why I said, Hashem Lubugano, right? You remember the story I told you? That everybody prayed they wouldn't wake up in the morning. And I also prayed the same thing. That's why I said, right, that on the sin, on my sin, that I didn't think bigger. I didn't think about getting out. The Jewish people could say, so it is also in every guns. What? That in exile, what happens is people just think, just get rid of these problems that I've got. Right? They're not thinking about Mashiach and getting out of being a Jewish people and revelation of godliness. Who thinks about things like that? What do we care?
But today.
Huh? Yeah, today, sure. People want revelation of Mashiach, they want this. Imagine, if a person has a lot of troubles, so he says, I want Mashiach to get me out of my troubles. Right? If a person has a lot of money, he says, I don't want Mashiach to come, I'm okay as I am. What do I have to have all these problems? Mashiach is going to come, turn the whole world upside down, everybody's going to be rich. I worked hard to be richer than everybody else. There are.
I don't think it's that cynical.
Sure it is, of course, the Rebbe said.
Definitely.
Of course.
That people actually think I'm rich, I don't
Definitely.
to be rich.
Yeah, sure.
100%.
Sure. Everyone, in Mashiach comes, everyone's going to have the same amount of money, they're all going to be rich.
Yeah, no.
And people enjoy being better than other
What do you
people.
mean? It's very simple. If you think about it, it's a very simple thing.
Sure.
I work very hard, and now I'm on the top of the world. I feel great. I'm
And this guy's going to get everything by not working. I worked hard.
People
Okay, let's go. Come on. Yeah, but let's go.
Sheyesh,
There are. Why do you think that way? Because you don't have money. You'll get rich. You'll see. Hashem should make you rich. You shouldn't think that way.
Amen, but I've been opposite. I don't believe.
Okay,
Maybe
so
Today we're all rich
think-
by the olden day standards,
maybe-
and we don't feel great.
You see in
maybe
politics.
people think that I'm
But that's just
I'm
another
good.
opinion.
I don't
Okay,
maybe care or I don't. Whatever.
Listen, you can see in politics almost always the conservative parties are the people who have money.
Yeah.
The conservatives almost always, not always.
No, but
The
Yeah, the
conservatives.
richest last election were liberals.
Usually the conservative people, they're the ones that have money. They want the status quo, right? They don't want big political changes and big things. They want things to stay the way they are, right? Now, let's go. Sheyeshnam, there are a lot of tests.
Kama?
Many. Tests.
Yes, no, no.
Yeshnam, there are. Kama, many. Nisyonos, tests. Bikiyun, in doing. HaTorah, Torah. HaMitzvos, and the mitzvahs.
Keeping or doing?
Keeping, doing, right? In the time of exile, exile was always bad. But the time of Haman was even worse. Hine, behold, Oz then. Bizaman, in the time. Gezeras, the decrees. Haman of Haman. Haya was. Ha-Helen, the concealment. The Hester and the, what do we translate it? The
covering up.
The covering over, the confusion, owed Yosef even more. The Rebbe points out that there never in the history of the world was there such a terrible decree as in Haman's time. Haman's decree was to kill all the Jews, men and women, elders and children, on one day. And Haman ruled over the whole world. So there wasn't anywhere for anybody to run away, and there wasn't any time for anybody to run away.
Holocaust.
The Holocaust was only in one area in Europe. There were Jews all over in America. They weren't in the Holocaust. And not only that, it took years to do. You didn't have the whole world, right? It's true, everybody kept quiet for 5 years. They were killing Jews. But still, the fact of the matter is it took time. And here in the time of Haman, everyone was for Haman. They all liked him. There wasn't anybody that was warring against him. There wasn't American troops were coming in, or the Russian troops were coming in. No, and it was all in one day. The decree was that everyone was for him. Everybody, they had their next door neighbors, their Jewish neighbors, waving right at the window, big sword, right, showing how they could cut down trees and behead axes and things like that. The day is coming, right? The Jewish people didn't know what to do.
Where to go?
Where to go? There was nowhere to go. Where could you run? The guy knew what was going on.
Everyone was for Hitler until we attacked him.
Okay?
Why?
But the world wasn't, you understand? There were Jews in America that weren't under, that Hitler couldn't get to them. He couldn't get to them. You know?
Why was it that?
Let me just finish the line. So if so, that within that time, you want to say that was the time of Haman's Gezerah, that was the highest, then the Jews really got the point. Nevertheless, even though the time of Matan Torah, when the Jews got the Torah, was the highest point in Jewish history, all the Jews were together. It says that they were like one person with one heart. And then they didn't get, and God was talking to all of them. They were all tzaddikim, they were all holy. And the time of Haman, it says the Jews all ate from the meal of Achashverosh. They were all, the Jews all wanted to assimilate. It was terrible.
That's true.
Nevertheless, Bisman at the time of Matan Torah, Kishahayu, when there was Yisrael, the Jews, Betachlis at Ilui, at the highest,
Keshehu?
Kishahayu, when they were Yisrael, the Jews, Betachlit at the ultimate, Ilui, highness, Hayatai, it was, Rak, only, Ha'atchala, the beginning. By the way, do you know, people, why did Haman, the Megillah starts off with Achashverosh makes this big meal for half a year, big party. You know why I made the party? Half a year party? This is one of the reasons was that he believed in God, and he knew the Jewish people were the chosen people, and he saw that the Jewish people were hanging around without a country, without this, they were amazing, and they had done sins, and nevertheless God keeps forgiving them. And he knew the Jewish people were in exile for 70 years. And they were supposed to come back. And according to his calculations, the 70 years already ended.
That's right, yeah.
And the Jews didn't come back. And the Jews believed it. The Jews believed him. And therefore he made this big meal and he said, that's it. That God left the Jews and the Jews are going to stay in exile forever. And the Jews accepted it also. And so they came to his party. They said, we're not going to be fools. We came to the party. And they all wanted to be, part of Achashverosh's world. They thought maybe God would take them out of exile 70 years. And suddenly they realized, hey, it's not going to happen, fellas. It's just not going to happen. So we had the first temple, we messed it up, we lost it. And that's it. Let's be realists. Be a realist. It's not called pessimism, it's called realism. There's not going to be any second temple. The Jewish people are finished. And, we'll be a nation like every other nation. We'll have our customs. We'll have our, the Irish people have their kilts, and the Mexican people have their sombreros, whatever. It's sort of neat.
Scottish type.
And the Scottish people have the kilts. So, the Jewish people will have our, whatever it is, a mezuzah on the door or something. They really believed that was the end. That was the end. And that was the whole party. So the Jewish people were at the lowest point they would ever have been, and that was considered when they really got to the point. Huh?
Like the way it is now.
Now, let's see, nowadays, there are Jews like that, but there were Jews that were religious. Back then, it was, almost everybody went to the meal. It says the only real Jew, we're going to see, the only real Jew that held on to the whole thing, the only Jew that really held on to it was Mordechai.
Rabbi.
Except for Mordechai, everybody else was, wavering. They were all wavering. Everybody thought, listen, what's for sure is sure. They tell the story about the old lady that she's on her deathbed. An old religious lady in Mea Sharim. She's 103 years old. She has all of her family around. All these, she's an old, super ultra-Orthodox Jew from Orthodox. She's laying on her deathbed, and she says, "Bring me Minchas Yerushalayim," a big book with vidui. She says, "Now bring me a cross." I said, "What?" She says, "Bring me a cross." "Grandma, what happened?" He says, "Listen, I don't want to take any chances." And the Hebrew comes out better. Masha batuach batuach. Maybe there's something to that. All her life, a little, could be. After this, the 2 billion of these, other people, maybe
A little pintle.
a little getcha inside. A little goy inside. Every Jew has it. Every Jew has a little Amalek inside of them, and every has a little idolatry. Every Jew has it. It's the same thing with the then and the death. The only one was 100% sure of God that He was going to take the Jews out and He was going to build the second temple was Mordechai. But except for that, everybody else sold out a little. That's what we are. What can you do? Except we have the Rabbi. The person that holds on the Rabbi Mendel Footpass told me.
No, we don't really have any idolatry.
Huh?
No Jew has idolatry.
According to what it says over here, every Jew does. There's no Jew that doesn't have it. Every Jew has little doubts inside.
No, not doubts.
That's idolatry. That's idolatry. Doubts is idolatry. If a person worships himself, he doesn't think that God can do something. That's already, huh? If you believe that Hashem really exists and Hashem can do anything and Hashem is good, so you believe in Hashem. If you say maybe Hashem is not so good, so maybe so. Who is good? Me.
Okay, we're finished now.
We finished.